Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Discovery Channel. This is Tom O'Connor down in New Orleans, Louisiana, where if it's August, it must be hurricane time. We have not one, not two, but three tropical waves building up out in the Atlantic Ocean. So we're ready for that fun part of the year.
We can always be sure that we're going to get a weather report at the beginning of these. So
yeah. Well, because people want to come down here, and it's always like, yeah, you might want to wait a week on that one because there's but we got nothing close. We're good for 10 days at least of
good. So
beautiful 90 weather here, 90 degrees and 90% humidity. So come on down.
Yeah.
Right? It's good for the skin. As always, Rocky Messing joining us from Tel Aviv, still dodging the Prime Minister's security forces out in front of your house there, Rocky?
I've managed to avoid them. They have not arrested me yet, so I think that's a good thing. And we're in the middle of a heat wave over here, and every time that I complain, my wife reminds me that we do live in a desert. So it's like, what do you expect?
And what's the heat wave there?
We're in the upper 90s as the low during the day. So
okay.
It's pretty warm, but
you do have the ocean is like a hop, skip, and a jump away, right?
That is true. I try to take advantage of it whenever I can.
There you go. Well, we're delighted today to have with us. Rocky and I could go on like this forever. You guys will appreciate this. Both of you will appreciate this since you knew Browning Marie. And Browning and I used to do some in the early days of podcasting. We would do some recordings of people, film recordings at Legal Tech. And I forget who the vendor was at the time. Oh, it was a Mel's company out of, they were out of DC. The heck was the name? Like, whatever. Anyways, we had a victim that day, and we were seated on either side of her, and I did what I just did now. Said, hey, Browning, how you doing? Good, Tom. How are you? Hey, Browning, what's going on with the Chargers this year? Are they going to? And all of a sudden, we realized we had been talking to each other for 10 minutes and did not even recognize the woman who was sitting between us. It was like a partner at, Hunga Dunga and McCormick in New York City, and she's kind of looking at us like, well, how did I get hooked up with these nuts?
Amy is no stranger. She does not, and she's not shy. So I'm sure.
That's right. So for those of you who do not know, who have perhaps been living under a rock for the last 50 years, this is Amy Bowser-Rollins, who is currently the VP of User Engagement and Community at Casepoint, the software company, but also much better known for years and years and years as the litigation support guru, which is still your title of your company name, right, Amy?
Actually, my company is LSG Media, but I use litigation support guru everywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
and for good reason.
Name recognition, as you know, in our business, once you got it, you latch onto it. Don't let it go.
And it's funny, I didn't name it that because I am one. I named it that so I could create more people. I wanted to teach how to be a litigation support guru. So
how's that
a lot
working?
of people ask me about, why do you think you're the guru? And I was like, that's not what I meant when I named it. But you pick a domain name and you're stuck.
And it is fitting. So let's learn a little bit about how you to that point.
Let's get you going in this crazy business.
Yeah.
So I want to preface by saying in high school, I knew I wanted to have my own business. I don't know how I knew that, but I joined Future Business Leaders of America, and I was going to be self-employed. I didn't know what I was going to be doing. So
now, where did you go to high school? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, Greenbelt, Maryland, Eleanor Roosevelt.
Right. And so you grew up in the greater Baltimore area?
I'm an Army brat, so I moved around a little bit. But we landed in Maryland at some point, and I spent the rest of my school years here. Originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Well, Definitely a move up in the world.
It turns out I prefer the fast pace of this area. So.
Oh, I love Baltimore. Rocky knows. Rocky, of course, is a Baltimore native, and I'm a.
And I'm representing today just in honor of our call because I knew that Amy was.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I went to college there, my undergraduate work, and fell in love with the city. Get back every chance I get, which unfortunately is not much now, but I love that area. Love it. Yeah.
Plus, I like.
So I interrupted you. You wanted to be in business, and.
Oh, so my first job in high school was data entry. So I learned how to type really fast, and then my first real job was at a law firm. So it was a boutique firm in Bethesda, Maryland, called Beckett, Cromwell and Myers, and they actually had a Baltimore office. I found, later I found that out, and I didn't understand what law firms were. I just got this job, at a law firm, and so I ended up in 3 positions there. The first was a billing administrator. So I created the draft bills on the dot matrix printer, and I made the edits, and I created the final bill, right? And that was all in a Wang OIS system.
There you go.
So, dating myself right there.
Yeah.
And then I moved into being a word processing supervisor. So I had a team of 3. So, back in the day when you had that central location that all the attorneys could go to get word processing done, that was that. And then I ended up being moved into a legal secretary position for 2 litigators. And then I learned more about litigation.
Yeah.
So it was pretty interesting. But because I always wanted to have my own business, I quit that job and I started my own company. And I aptly named it Abco Business Services. Why? Okay. Because it would show up at the beginning of the yellow pages, again, dating myself. But I ended up getting through one of the named partners at that firm. I ended up getting a contract with the Client Security Trust Fund. It was really actually Attorney Grievance Commission running it, but I ran the Client Security Trust Fund. And for people that don't know what that is, that's the fund that bills Maryland attorneys for their annual dues every year. So I maintained the database of 26,000 lawyers, and I billed them for their dues. So it was a main contract, and then I also did word processing stuff on the side. So I ended up with a couple employees. I did that for 5 years. So, wow. And I started having kids, so it was good timing. But then I eventually went back to the law firm side, and this was my first entrance into the DC arena. So I got my first job in DC at Cadwalader in a legal trainer position. So I ended up in that. One thing I remember from that job is a project of transferring all the legal secretaries and the staff from DOS to Windows. So we were having training classes on a weekly basis, and we completed that.
I feel your pain.
Huh?
I feel your pain. Been there, tortured in that. Yeah.
Were you training mostly staff or the attorneys or who was?
Yeah, it was everybody. It was mainly staff initially because the secretaries had to get up to speed. But yeah, we had the evening classes for the attorneys, and we, brought alcohol to try and get them to actually come to the training. But yeah, just learning how to use a mouse. That's how old I am. So, teaching that, switching from WordPerfect to Microsoft Word, things like that. So anyways, Cadwalader had, this was 95 timeframe, and they downsized. I don't know if you remember this. They downsized their New York office, their New York IT department by a lot that year. And we all got nervous in DC. There were 3 of us. And sure enough, they ended up laying off, switching the network guy to part-time, and then telling me that I needed to go find another job. They at least gave me time to find something. So within a week, I landed a job at Brownstein and Zeidman. I don't know if you know them, but another DC firm. That was a legal trainer / application specialist. So that took me more into, still part of the IT department, but more into applications. What are all these tools that law firms use? So, and of course I ate all that up. I loved it.
What were they using then? What were those tools?
That's a good question. I learned about folio views.
Yeah,
back in the day. You remember that?
Wow. Right.
Yep. And they were using Microsoft Office, so.
Okay.
Not
WordPerfect.
WordPerfect back then. I think that was a WordPerfect company.
Yeah.
So then I was, not there very long. I was there a year when they had to downsize. They had 2 practice groups that left. And I still remember this. My entire life, I'll remember this because the office administrator, he was a nice guy, an older guy, and he pulled me into his office and he delicately said, "We're laying off 40 people today."
Oh.
And he goes, "You were one of 3 in the IT department. You were the newest person. We have to keep the network guy, and he goes, "I fought for you, but, I'm giving you your pink slip." So that was in DC. So I remember driving home and stopping off at Best Buy, buying a fax modem to put into my computer, and then installing it. And I sent my resume out to any job I could find that afternoon. And I got a hit. And this recruiting firm in Columbia, Maryland, which is where I live close to, responded right away. And he said, "We've been looking for 6 months for someone just like you, somebody with litigation experience, database experience, and training experience." And I was like, "Sign me up." And that was with Piper and Marbury, which was before their merger with DLA. So
okay.
I ended up going to that firm. It was in Baltimore. So I also switched from DC to Baltimore. And I ended up staying there 8 years, growing there. It was a help desk / lit support role when they were just starting lit support. What is this thing? We think we need it, And so I evolved into being a lit support manager and building a team of 12 across 4 offices. But I loved that firm. I loved being there. I loved that they refreshed their technology every 2 years, but that was where I had my first big case. And that was where I learned what second requests are. So my first big case was a DOJ investigation, and it was 12 terabytes and 140 billion emails.
Whoa.
So, and back then we were doing it, printing the paper and printing spreadsheets and, really badly. But I also learned about the white collar second request. I mean, the antitrust group doing second requests. And again, I love fast pace. I love stress. I love trying to solve the problem in a short amount of time. So second requests are my thing. They come and go in 6 weeks. It's collect a lot of data, look at it and get it out the door. And so I did a bunch of second requests while I was there during those 8 years. I loved every second of it. I still like second requests for some reason.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How did you?
A lot of people, it's amazing how many people their first true test by fire has been second request, both on the technology side and a lot of the attorneys. A lot of the second requests that I've worked on, the attorneys had never done one before, and they were figuring it out just as much as everyone else. So it's amazing how much pressure there can be for these types of things.
Yeah.
So did you move them into using technology for that?
So back in that time frame, it was 8 years, right? So a lot changed. So we started out in summation, but then web-based tools started coming on board. So my first web-based tool was with Tryon. Do you remember them?
Sure.
Out of Cleveland.
Yeah. So that's how I met Brad Mixner and a couple
Brad,
yeah.
Wow.
So Merrill
Yep, they did. So, but I gave him a chance, then I actually went to Ohio and Brad gave me a site visit. Back then I liked to do site visits, so I would travel and go see where, their office and everything before I hired him. So, but eventually, I think
you probably
that
worked with Dan Hughes, Joe Turner, Hemoth.
Definitely Joe. But also this guy that was their developer guy. He ended up at a couple of big companies in our industry, and he was really nice, very smart. I forget his name. I always have to look it up.
Was it Hemoth?
Yeah, it was Hemoth. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He was so smart and articulated things well. Yep. But by the end of the 8 years, we were just getting into the tools we still have today, you know, so a few of them. But yeah, it was hard to get attorneys to consider a web-based tool back then.
Right. And concerns over security, the concerns over just, is this going to work? What happens when it goes down? Reliability. It's
and part of it has nothing to do with that. It was just, we do it this way. We've always done it this way, and we don't want to do it differently.
That's it.
We always rode a horse to deliver the mail, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
I remember one of my last cases there was a huge one. It was a lot of paper. We collected a lot of paper, and they pulled in the Philly office and the Chicago office. By then we were DLA, right? And they were shipping boxes overnight on these big planes just to do a multi-office review in paper.
Right.
Yep.
So this is 2004, and then you had a momentous occasion of receiving an email one day sometime in 2004, while you were at DLA, from some guy Rocky who was in Baltimore and wanted to get together and meet. And we met the week after you left DLA. Like, I emailed you, I think, the first time while you were there.
While I was there.
And then, like, the week after you left was when we actually met.
So at the end of 8 years, I got to know a guy at one of our providers, Cricket Technologies, really well, and I was using them a lot. And he ended up wanting to be my angel investor to start my second company. So I started a second company, a consulting company by now, providing litigation support services to law firms and everything. And yes, I was in that role trying to, get business when I met Rocky in a tiny little place in Baltimore.
A cafe somewhere.
Yeah. We were using it as a remote working site for the team because a couple people were helping me. And so, yeah, you stopped by and I was like, and you were at RBM right back then, right?
No. So 2004 would have been while I was either at my very end at Merrill, but probably I was at Capital for a year. So, sorry, not Capital for a year. I was at Capital for like 2 months then, and then I went to RLS.
RLS is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it was probably
because you flew in from there, right? I mean, you were there in Texas, is that right?
I was living in Baltimore, but working 2 out of every 4 weeks in Texas.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah.
And who was the guy you worked for? Because I liked him a lot. Yeah.
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 So
I ended up staying in touch with him for a while too. Yeah. But anyways, it was like Rocky Messing, nice guy, wants to get together. And that's where we bonded. And so to this day, I have to remind Shimmy every single time Rocky is the first one I met.
Yes. Just keep
Rocky's my favorite.
Keep reminding him, it's good for him. So.
Because Shimmy and I got really close over the years. I don't know if you remember when I launched Litigation Support Guru, he reached out. I launched it in September 2011, and Legal Tech was coming around in January. He said, we need to do something for Litigation Support Guru. I was like, okay. He wanted to help me grow it, help me promote it. And I was like, okay, what do you want to do? He goes, let's do a parody video. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he sends me this video, this YouTube video of this guy pretending to be a girl and all the things girls say, so it was satirical or whatever.
That'd really go over now, huh?
So, but what we turned it into is what litigation support people say. So to this day on YouTube is shit lit support people say, and, and it's hilarious. We scripted it. We brought 3 outfits that evening. We changed clothes. It was hilarious. We did it in a responsive office, where Shimmy was at the time. So we just switched from room to room and, and we filmed it and it's hilarious. You have to watch it.
Viral amongst the community.
It did. And it was perfect because it was right before Legal Tech. So everybody was talking about it. He did me a big favor and I'll always be thankful. Cool. But yeah, it's hilarious. You have to watch it, Tom, if you haven't seen it. You probably saw it back in the day, but
It's
You know,
worth
I remember seeing it. I don't remember the details. I remember hearing about it and people talking about it. But I had no, you know, in fast forward to today or slow forward to today. It's not. It was not in my memory banks. It was you and Jimmy, right? So now I gotta go back and look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll try to remember to send it to you.
It's worth rewatching because nothing's changed. That's
Good,
yeah, that is kind of sad. Yep.
Change a couple of the nouns and it's all still the same. Yeah.
So when I started that company, though, that was my first time that I attended. So when you're on a big law firm side, they don't treat you the same way. They hire consultants. They don't let you do it, even though you have that skill set in-house.
Yeah.
So one thing I did in that, when I had that company, is I attended 30B6 depositions as the IT expert.
Right.
So I started, you know, being that liaison. So I went to a couple of depositions. I went to some local. I was flown out to Texas to do, what's the company, the cosmetic company that has a pink building and pink cars and pink, it's not
Mary
Avon,
Kay?
it's something else, right? Huh?
Mary Kay?
It might be Mary Kay, yeah. Anyways, there was an attorney working for a case for them, and we ended up going to this high-rise building, and I'll never forget because you know, you come from a large law firm and you're treated as staff, and so he flew me out there. He took me to the client meeting. It was a conference room, and I sat down in the corner, you know, because I was used to being a chair away from the table.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, no, Amy, come over here and, you know, sit right next to me at the table." And so it was just a whole different experience. But it was really cool seeing a deposition live, you know, because I always got the end result of it, you know, but to be there and be able to lean over to him, or during a break, be able to explain to him he should ask these 3 follow-up questions, you know. So that was kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Then I got a phone call from someone who worked with the executive administrator at Mayor Brown, called me because she overlapped with me at Piper. And she said, we're looking for somebody to run our litigation support in the DC area. They had a Chicago presence. And that was Mayor Brown. So that was interesting because Bruce Markowitz had been there for 8 years and he left. So I was replacing him. But the interview process was get me in there, start the interview, and I did 17 interviews in 3 days or five days, including flying out to Chicago. Coming from Piper, where interview process took too long, in my opinion, you know, they were driven. Like, they wouldn't let me leave the last day that I was there. They were like, "No, hold on a second." I was like, "What am I holding on for? The schedule's done."
We got 10 more people we want you to talk to.
Yeah, they just wanted me to stay there till the end and give me the offer on the table before I left the building. And I was like,
right.
But that was to build a lit support team on the East Coast. So I did that. We had some people in New York. That was my first time pulling a records management person into the world of litigation support. Still friends with her now. So that was pretty cool. But I didn't stay long there because of the guy that I ended up working for. I'd never worked for a guy like that before, which is why Bruce left. But I got a phone call from Doug Batchelor.
Yeah.
So Doug had been a sales guy that got through to me at Piper and actually got business from me at Piper. And he called and said, "I need you to come to the vendor side and I need you to run our DC office of Capital Digital." And so I was like, "No, I'm not going to a vendor. I always promised myself I would never go to a vendor."
Not going to the dark side.
Exactly. But it was Doug, and you know how Doug can be, you know, persuasive. So he goes, "I'll make it." I said, "You can't afford me. I'll get law firm salaries, you know," and he's like, "I'll make it happen." So he did. And oh my God, you know, my experience there was managing 3 shifts of people from Ethiopia. And I loved every second of it, like just getting to know them, empowering them. You know, the previous guy was like, "No, you can't do that. You're not smart enough." Whereas I was like, "Come over here. Let me show you how to do the software," you know? And so one one person I met there, Clement. He stayed in my life for a long time. A couple of people are still in my life, but Clement was my closest. And I ended up taking him with me when I went from Capitol. I followed Doug to go to Barrister. And I took Clement. And then years later, I recommended Clement to work at TransPerfect Digital Reef, which is where my husband currently works. So now Clement works side by side with my husband Kel every day. They talk. But look, Clement was a person that he was eager. He wanted to learn. He thought he could do it, but nobody believed in him. So, but I did. I had the patience to show him how to do something, and then he got his RCA, and like he's the
awesome
guy now. He's doing it, but somebody has to believe in you and empower you. And so, I don't know, he's close to my heart. I didn't stay long at Barrister because it wasn't,
Funny story about Capitol. So I did like a 2-month stint at Capitol.
when you said that earlier, I don't remember that.
So because it was officially 2 months, but I was actually only there for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Because I didn't know Doug at the time. I didn't get recruited by him. I got recruited by someone else. And,
was it Lucas Mahano, the guy that owned the company?
No, but whoever it was basically told me that they were bringing me in order to roll out e-discovery to all the different Capitol offices.
Okay.
They were mostly doing print and blowbacks, and that they wanted to start an e-discovery program. So I joined. I walked into the DC office on that first Monday that I was starting, and they said, just go to the DC office, find Doug Batchelor, and he'll get you going. And I walked in, and he said, oh, so you're the guy who they hired as second shift supervisor. And I'm like, no.
I don't think so.
And apparently there was a miscommunication between the hiring person and Doug, and meanwhile they had hired someone else to roll out e-discovery to the rest of the offices. And they were like, well, so we don't need you to do that. We really just need you to be a shift supervisor. So we'll get you started on that. And I was like, yeah, this isn't happening.
No. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So that didn't last too long. And
I was there at the end of the DC office existing. When I came in, he was bringing in $6 million a month. And then we had that summer where everything slowed down, and a lot of our friends lost their jobs because everything slowed down that summer. And then, I was there towards the end of the existence of the DC office.
Yeah. So I was there probably 2003 time frame. 2003.
I was there 2006. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. Anyway, but
yeah.
Yes.
No, but that's interesting. So then, I eventually went to, after being on the vendor side, I went to an IT consulting company in DC. They did IT for law firms. And my connection there was Matt Daniel was the IT director in the DC office of Piper. And so he and I had kept in touch. So I ended up going to Sage Solutions, and they were just doing IT. So I added lit support, to their offering. That's where I met Jeff Ifra, who's a really prominent lawyer in the DC area in the gaming field now. He switched over. But that was my first time working on a white collar criminal case. I knew white collar, but I didn't understand the discovery process in criminal. And he was representing the CEO of the company that had been 8 people were indicted, but the CEO is the only one that didn't settle. He was very adamant about not settling. So it was 2 million emails and one guy. And so it was interesting because Jeff was at Greenberg Traurig at the time. So that was the firm he was, But that case, again, changed my perspective on things of what you can do with technology. Of course, it was just concordance, but what you could do with the database, right? To get to those emails that you needed to save this guy's life, basically, because I had never worked on a case where it was a person. because it was always, company.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had children, he was going to be going to jail or not going to jail.
With personal repercussions. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Not
a
just
whole
a possible
different
fine. Yeah. It's a whole different set of pressures in that criminal arena. Yep.
So then Sage downsized and was about to be bought out, and the owner gave me time to find another job. And Robbins Russell, a boutique firm in DC, was their client. They did their IT services. So I had interacted with them as an account manager. And when I mentioned to their lit support person that I was going to have to look for another job, she goes, "Hold on a second." And she ran down the hall and talked to a partner. And next thing you know, I'm at Robbins Russell. And that was another coming back full circle to a boutique size firm. But what was different is I was seasoned lit support by now, and 2 full-time lit support people for 25 attorneys is sort of unheard of. Right. We were very busy. That's how much they believed in using litigation support services. Great group of people. That was where I was first exposed to Casepoint. I was first exposed to relativity. I worked with KPMG's Discovery Radar product when they were before they succumbed to getting relativity. I also used AlphaLit's eDirect product. I don't know if you guys ever used that, but I fell in love with AlphaLit's team, who's now part of Kale Discovery. So I also used LLM when I was there. So LLM's Lit Manager. So I used a variety of product. I'd already used Documatrix before when I was at Piper, and Ringtail. I ended up using Ringtail a little bit while I was at Robbins Russell. So, but yeah, just large document reviews at a boutique-sized firm that's known for their appeals process. They had some attorneys that were specialized in appeals, and actually, I just remembered they handled the appeal of the guy that I was helping represent.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah. So
that's funny.
That the case that I was working on was part of the appeal. I just remembered. So and so he'd already gotten, he lost his first case, but he appealed, and Robbins Russell was handling it. So Jeff was interacting with Robbins Russell, the attorney was, and then I was interacting with Robbins Russell as part of Sage, so Robbins Russell was my new home, and it was wonderful. I loved those people. I still love those people. But again, I got an itch to be on my own. So I stopped.
Pattern.
Huh?
Yeah, I see a pattern developing here. Yeah.
Well, by then, I was there from 2009 to 2015. So what happened in that time frame is Women in E-Discovery. So I got there in 2009, but I'd already started being a part of, the startup of Women in E-Discovery in 2007. So I was heavily involved in Women in E-Discovery at that point, and at the national level, supporting all the 30 chapters, And then I also, in 2012, January, started teaching at Georgetown in their continuing School of Continuing Studies, their Georgetown paralegal program. So I basically had 4 jobs at that point. I had my day job at Robbins Russell, which included, evenings. And then I had Women in E, which Robbins Russell was like, this is professional development. We're okay with everything you do with them. Then I had teaching at Georgetown, which, oh my God, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then, because, sponges in a room, and lots of those people ended up going into lit support roles because I was like, you don't want to be a paralegal, you're tech savvy. But then I had Litigation Support Guru, and I was helping people, and I was starting to make an impact from a coaching or mentoring standpoint. So I was like, I really enjoy that part of my life, helping people. So I went on my second sabbatical, and then I did that for 15 months. So I detached my workaholic, nature, and I just spent time growing Litigation Support Guru and doing more one-on-one with people. I still taught at Georgetown.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I know that that's where your true joy is, and on the mentorship side. So first of all, how do people tend to hear about you? Where, like, are people approaching you? Are other people saying, "Hey, I think you should talk"? Like, is it coming through references? How at this point? Because I met people who you've mentored. I've met, see the posts. I see everything, and I mean, you've had a lot of people come through, and your teaching, your general way about life that you've given them, and empower them to see that there's all these opportunities. Like, how does it happen? Like,
So sometimes it's like a cold email, somebody was searching Google, and sometimes it's that, but most of it is colleagues at my level that are hiring, or they know somebody who wants to get into it, and they just redirect them to my site and me if that's what they need. And then a lot of times it was my fellow lit support manager saying, how sometimes when we're hiring, we either, depending on the timing, we either need a seasoned person to come in the door and get started, or we're open to having a newbie, So whenever they were open to having a newbie, and usually it was cost related, they would come to me. Do you have anybody in the pipeline, right now, And so it was either somebody I was already mentoring and, walking them through what we do, or it was one of my students, So, yeah, once I was teaching, I did that for 6.5 years. It was like a pipeline of people coming through. But a lot of times it was somebody like you, Rocky, saying, I mean, Rich Van Nelson? You know him? No. He's currently at Winston, but he's a DC guy. I originally met him when I did that big second request for MCI WorldCom, because he was at MCI back then. Okay. But anyways, he just, because of my announcement yesterday, he sent me a message. He said, I have a person I'm training right now, and she's new, and I told her to subscribe to your site, and I want her to learn from you, and I'll keep reminding her. That's what he said. So it's things like that, and then there's a girl at Kroll and Mooring right now where Ed reached out and said, I need a person, and as one of my students, she's still there, and she's grown, up to being a project manager. So it's just.
So what are some of the things that you look for in your students and in your mentees that, like, say to you, obviously you can take, develop anyone into a solid person, but what are the things that you're looking for that, if people are listening, especially a lot of people who watch our videos are people trying to crack into the industry, they're trying to learn, like, what are people looking for, what are the skills? Can you name like 3 of the top things that you're looking for in a person that say they're going to make it?
Yep. One of the first things. Huh?
Can you actually tell us that?
Yeah. One of the first things that I noticed right away, if somebody's come into my, world of litigation support guru and wants my help, is what are their communication skills? Like, do they actually follow up? Do they actually continue the conversation? And then do they do the homework? I started giving homework to test that exact thing you're saying, Rocky. I would say, go read this, go do these 3 things, and then if I never heard from them again, then they weren't passionate enough about doing it. But I had some people that, oh my God, like on my site, I just redesigned my website. That's what my announcement was yesterday. I felt a calling to start blogging again. So on my homepage now are 6 audio testimonials from people that I've helped. One of them is Victoria, and she's an example of a cold email. She heard about me maybe through Google. She's been in a firm for 20 years. Life. If you listen to the audio file, you hear. Yeah, I'm having some internet issues. You still hear me?
I kind of hear you, Tom. I mean,
Yeah,
it's definitely not for me.
There was some cutting out there, and
Yeah.
your image is frozen on my screen, Amy.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I hear Tom okay.
At first, I thought it was me because we always have infrastructure
Yeah.
problems there.
Okay. It seems. You hear me now?
In and out.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
I kind of hear you in and out. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to drop off and come back on, and we'll edit this.
No, it's okay, it's back again. Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you clear, but the screen is frozen, and now it's back. Okay.
Yeah, so I have a Chrome plugin that tells me when my internet's going. Okay, now it's yellow again.
Time for the last question, Rachi.
Yeah, I think we might have to, but no, I wanted to hear, like I heard only this.
Okay, it's back again right now. Let's see if it'll last.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were saying something, start over again with about, I think you said Victoria, but I didn't hear what you said.
So an example of somebody who did respond to me trying to help and did the homework is Victoria. I didn't know much about her, but I started telling her what I normally tell people. And I told her, you know, these are some resources. And I said, here's I had something from that I gave my students at Georgetown to learn. And so I gave her one of those exercises to do. Well, come to find out, she took everything I told her and the stuff I told her to do, and I gave her sample files on Dropbox and everything. And she created this binder. She organized everything into a binder. She was a paralegal, you know, so she just organized everything I taught her. And I met her in person eventually, and I saw the binder. I was like, oh my God. You know, but that's it, Rachi. Somebody can't just be, it can't be a fly by the night thing that they want to do. I'm not, you know, as I said, sometimes I have 3 and 4 jobs, you know, so if I'm going to invest my time, it has to be somebody who really wants this, you know, who I can get on a call with them, you know, and I can have one conversation and then see where it goes from there. But yeah, it's somebody who really wants it. It's people that take action, people that take initiative, those kinds of people. I mean, they're going to survive in lit support anyway, right? Because that's what we need in lit support. But that's the kind of person that works well.
Can do and is willing to research the issue and figure out how to actually solve it. Because half the time we don't necessarily have the answer off the top.
Right.
And then also they're curious. I look for curiosity, and I look for people that are not afraid to click somewhere, you know. And so I ended up creating a free course because that was testing. It's about working with delimiters and converting files from one format to another. It's a very simple course, but it's a video course, and it works with TextPad and Ultra Edit and Word. And so some people just went through that. And at the end, I would say, did you have fun or did you not like that at all? Right. And anybody who said that was really fun, teach me more. Yeah.
Join the club.
I recently had this guy fly through that course because I get the notifications. It was just a few months ago. And I was like, wow, so nobody's been in there in a while, you know, because it's just sitting out there on the internet. He flew through the course. I reached out to him on LinkedIn. And he's a guy doing lit support in a firm in Florida. And he just wanted to go through it and see if he could learn anything. And he said, I did learn something about, you know, converting files and working with delimiters. But he said, you're like a breath of fresh air. You know, that's what he said on LinkedIn. And it was just so cool that he took the time and he did the work and he learned from it, and for now, he's impressed me, you know, and that's all it takes sometimes for me to refer him to somebody.
So what comes next for Litigation Support Guru as you relaunch the website, and where do you see this headed? because you've been at it for like 10 years already. So
So funny you should say that. I redid the website on my vacation week 2 weeks ago. But after I finished, I said to my husband, wait a second, September is 10 years since I launched Guru. So my Fast Tip Friday videos were very popular, every Friday for 2 years, releasing a little tip. And they're on YouTube, and I get comments every week from people that are so thankful they learned that thing that saved them time.
Right.
So that's what triggered me to redo the website. I miss the blogging. You get sucked into a full-time job, and I miss helping people. I miss blogging. I miss sharing knowledge. I have different kinds of knowledge in the last 4 years working at a product company, so I have other things on my mind that I can talk about our industry. But yeah, I just want to start sharing knowledge again. And if there's somebody that needs help, I'll help them. But that's just it, just teaching. This paralegal program shut down in 2018 or 17. In 2018, a year later, they partnered with the mayor's office, and they created a program for people that were recently incarcerated that just gotten out of jail. And I did that, and now it was very rewarding. And so they're doing another cohort this fall. So mid-September, I start another group of those people. It's so empowering. I mean, just, some of them have been in so long they don't have computer skills, but some of them ended up with internships at law firms. They partnered with law firms and got jobs for 1 year.
That's awesome.
So one of the students that succeeded is going to come be a guest, this time around. It's just really, right. So yeah, I love my job. I love, what I'm doing at Casepoint, interacting with users and user engagement. I'm talking shop with users. I'm getting feedback on the product from users, since I've used all the products out there for the most part, but I was missing that helping people part.
Right.
So that's my goal, is to just get back to, being there for somebody who needs it at the right time.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time. So I am going to hand it over to Tom to take us out with I've learned, Tom, the 2 final questions.
Oh, there's 2? Okay.
There's 2. There's one we always use as a shocker. It's an easy one, though. Beatles or Stones?
I like them both. I've heard you ask this question. I've heard people answer right away. I like them both. So is it okay to say I like them both?
No.
You're allowed.
Tom says no.
I don't know if Tom allows it, but I allow it.
Okay. The second one, of course, we you've seen some of our other interviews, and if you could spend a day with anybody from our profession, and I use that phrase broadly, but doesn't have to be anybody alive. They could be living or dead. If you could spend a day with them doing whatever you want, doesn't have to be work related. Could be, going to the Smithsonian, hanging out, just shooting the breeze, go to a concert, whatever. Who would it be and what would you do?
So one of the people that impacted me early on was Jim Kane.
Oh, Jim. Boy, you're the only person who's mentioned him in all of our discussions. Jim was a great friend of mine. Yeah.
I think because he was local to me, I got to know him better. He
Right.
started the local lit support groups in DC.
Yeah.
And for me, learning the industry, he was just so generous with his time and knowledge.
Yes.
And we lost him too soon, in my opinion. So he was the other person that impacted me that I still stay in touch with through LinkedIn, but I wish I could just have a conversation with her, is Despina Cartson. Because she wrote the first book on litigation support that I got from the library at Pipe. And it was litigation from the title. And so, she switched. She had a huge impact on that you described. In
I'm losing you again. Are you, Rocky?
I also, unfortunately.
Well, that's all right. We got the name in there, so I think we're good. What do you
Let's
think?
give Amy a minute to maybe come back.
See if it cycles back.
Says it's back now.
Okay.
So,
but yeah, it would be Jim Kane. Just spending some quality one-on-one time with him.
Yeah.
But would you repeat the second one? Because that's where it started to cut out.
Despina Cartson.
Right. And where is she now?
She's at a law firm. She's switched a few firms, but she's doing knowledge management now.
Right.
But back in the day, she was at Uniscribe, and she was just, a forward thinker, thought leader, But not many people know her as, again, she just impacted me. But yeah, it would be Jim Kane because he was
I've always felt that knowledge management community were so far ahead of the game in things that we're talking about now, and they got kind of lost. Ron Friedman, who was at Wilmer Cutler in D.C. for years, and Peter Krakauer. There just were people who were in that field, and we've kind of just forgotten that they were pioneers in that field. But Jim was Jim was an old buddy of mine from the ABA. He got furious when I started growing my hair. That's how long I knew him. I showed up at a meeting once, and I had it, about wasn't even a ponytail yet, but it was clearly that I was growing it out. And he's furious. What are you doing? He goes, you know how Jim, you kind of get that Irish smoldering sort of.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And I looked at him, and of course he had the receding hairline. He said, "Why are you doing that? You look like a blah 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 hippie." And I looked at him, and I went, "Well, Jim, because I can."
Nice.
He was a great guy. Jim was the guy who introduced me to George Sosha. He was a great mentor to people as well throughout the years. And
George, I wrote an article about the 8 people that impacted me, and I put Jim Kane on there, and George was the one that replied, out of the comments saying he was really close to him.
Yeah. George and Jim were good friends, and Monty Ahalt, who was a judge up in I think Montgomery County, was one of the early pioneers of e-filing. He and Jim were involved in some e-filing projects. Yeah. I
don't recognize that name.
He's long retired, I'm sure. I haven't seen his name around for ages. I of course lost track of him, but he and Jim were also close, and started a couple of small e-filing companies that, again, we're just ahead of their time. So Jim was a great guy. I always enjoy getting together with him. So
I miss him.
Yeah. Well,
thanks so much for having me,
Amy,
guys.
thank you. We really appreciate it, and love your insights. You talk about the Wayback Machine, man. You brought up some names here that go way. Folio views. You started with folio views. Like, holy cow.
So, Tom, as you know, Amy is now, over the last bunch of years, has become famous during Legal Tech and other shows for her hugs, and it's been way too long, Amy. Hopefully,
wait a minute. No, we're getting photobombed here. Who's your pooch? Who's your pooch?
I actually have 3 dogs.
All right.
2 GSPs that look like him or her, and a yellow lab. Yeah, that's Harley telling me, hey, it's time for us now.
It's lunchtime. Come on, let's go. Enough of this yakking.
Cool. Okay.
Hug.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Amy.
Nice talking to you. It was really good to see you, Rocky.
Hopefully we'll be able to get a live hug sooner than later. We'll see what develops.
Yeah, hugs, because I am a hugger. Hugs was a really hard thing in 2020 for me.
Yeah, I was going to go to ILTA, like I said, and I'm not now. And I don't know if there's anything on the calendar before Legal Tech New York next year. So we'll see. But thanks again, Amy. Always a pleasure, and great getting your insight and your stories. Love hearing from you.
Thanks for asking me.
You bet.
Take
Rocky,
care, guys.
Thanks again, and for all the folks out there, please be safe, and we'll see you next time on the eDiscovery channel.